Awareness is the starting point of all transformation. Until you truly see what is happening inside of you, until you honestly observe your own mind and recognize the emotions that rise and fall within you, you cannot begin to take control. Many people go through life on autopilot, reacting to situations without a second thought, letting anger, fear, frustration, or sadness dictate their actions. They are not aware of the subtle signals their body and mind are sending them. Awareness is the first step because it allows you to pause, to witness, to step outside of the automatic reactions that have ruled your life for far too long. To be aware of your emotions is not merely to notice them in passing, but to understand them deeply, to see their origins, their triggers, their patterns. Every emotion has a source, a reason for existing. And when you shine the light of awareness on that source, you begin to reclaim your power. Imagine for a moment that your emotions are waves in the ocean. When you are unaware, those waves crash over you relentlessly, tossing you in all directions, leaving you exhausted and defeated. But the moment you become aware, the moment you see the wave approaching, you gain the ability to ride it, to adjust, to navigate through it rather than being destroyed by it. Awareness gives you the space to respond instead of react, to create instead of destroy, to consciously choose your path instead of being swept along by unconscious patterns. Most people confuse awareness with thinking about what they feel, but true awareness goes much deeper than the surface. It is a felt knowing, a clear seeing, an inner observation that does not judge or label, but simply notices. It is saying, this is what I am feeling right now. This is anger. This is fear. This is sadness. This is frustration. Without immediately trying to suppress it or act on it. You cannot master what you cannot identify. And emotions are mastered only when you first recognize them fully. The process of becoming aware is like turning on a light in a dark room. You suddenly see everything that was previously hidden in the shadows. You begin to notice the subtle tensions in your body, the tightness in your chest, the quickening of your heartbeat, the thoughts racing through your mind. You see the triggers that make you snap, that make you spiral, that make you react unconsciously. And when you see them clearly, you gain a new level of control. Awareness allows you to distinguish between the emotion itself and the story you tell yourself about the emotion. It allows you to observe without being entangled, to watch the drama without becoming the drama. Developing awareness requires practice and intention. It is not something that happens overnight. It is something you cultivate daily. You must train yourself to pause throughout the day and ask, what am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this way? What triggered this emotion? These questions are simple, but they are powerful. They create a shift from being a passive participant in your emotional life to becoming an active observer. Journaling, mindfulness practices, deep breathing, and meditation are all tools that enhance awareness. But awareness is ultimately an internal skill, a state of mind that you carry with you into every interaction, every challenge, every conversation. When you develop this awareness, you begin to notice patterns. You start to see that certain people, situations, or thoughts consistently provoke the same emotions in you. You notice that fear arises in predictable circumstances, that irritation spikes when certain expectations are unmet, that joy blooms when you align with your values. These patterns are not random. They are signals. They are guides showing you where your attention, your thoughts, and your beliefs are influencing your emotions. Awareness is the first step in transforming these patterns, because you cannot change what you do not see. Once you recognize the cycle, you can intervene. Once you see the pattern, you can break the automatic response and choose a higher, more empowered way to react. Awareness also creates a sense of responsibility. When you see your emotions clearly, you no longer blame external circumstances or other people for how you feel. You understand that while you cannot always control what happens to you, you can control how you respond. You begin to realize that your emotions are signals, not dictators, and that mastery comes from acknowledgement and choice, not suppression or avoidance. Awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence, the key to inner freedom, and the first step toward mastering yourself in every area of life. Emotions are not just feelings that come and go. They are energy in motion, powerful forces within you that, when understood and directed, have the ability to transform every aspect of your life. Every emotion carries a certain vibration, a specific frequency, a momentum that affects not only your internal world, but also the external reality you create. Fear, anger, sadness, frustration. These are not just inconveniences or problems to be suppressed. They are energy waiting to be harnessed. Energy that, if left unmanaged, can control you, but if directed, can propel you forward in ways you never imagined. Many people fail to recognize this. They see emotions as obstacles, as weaknesses, as signs that something is wrong, and they struggle to fight or ignore them. But the truth is that emotions are neutral in their essence. There are signals, information, and most importantly, energy that can be transformed. Think for a moment about the emotion of anger. On the surface, anger feels destructive. It can lead to rash decisions, harsh words, and regret. But beneath that surface, anger is a powerful surge of energy, a signal that something within you wants to be expressed, that something is out of alignment, that your boundaries need to be acknowledged. If you learn to channel that energy, it can become a catalyst for action, for change, for progress. Instead of lashing out blindly, you can redirect that energy into problem solving, into creating solutions, into building the life you desire. Similarly, fear is often seen as a negative emotion, something to be avoided or conquered. Yet fear is energy that signals growth. It is the body and mind alerting you to opportunities, to moments where stepping forward, despite discomfort, can expand your limits. When you see fear as energy in motion rather than an enemy, it becomes a tool, a guide, a signal that you are on the threshold of your next level of success. The concept of emotions as energy in motion also teaches us that no feeling is permanent. Emotions are fluid. They move, shift, and transform. When you resist them, when you try to hold on to them or push them away, you create internal tension, stress, and chaos. But when you allow yourself to feel fully, to acknowledge and observe the emotion, you allow the energy to flow through you. This flow creates clarity, release, and the potential to act consciously rather than react unconsciously. It is the difference between being swept away by a wave of frustration and surfing the wave skillfully, using its momentum to reach new heights. Life becomes less about enduring emotions and more about harnessing them, understanding their source, and channeling them in ways that serve your highest purpose. Energy in motion is also contagious. The emotions you carry influence not only your thoughts and actions, but also the people and environment around you. Joy, enthusiasm, determination, and confidence radiate outward, uplifting others, attracting opportunities, and creating momentum in your favor. Conversely, unchecked negativity, resentment, or fear can drain the energy around you, limiting your effectiveness and clouding your perception of possibilities. By learning to master your emotional energy, you become not only the director of your own life, but also a force that positively impacts those around you. You begin to understand that every moment is an opportunity to choose the kind of energy you bring into a situation, the kind of vibration you emit, and the ripple effects that follow. Mastering emotions as energy in motion requires self-awareness, observation, and discipline. You must recognize the emotional surge as it arises, name it, feel it fully, and consciously decide how to use it. It is a skill that grows with practice. Over time, you start to notice patterns, triggers that consistently provoke certain emotions. Physical sensations that accompany specific feelings, thoughts that amplify or diminish emotional intensity. You begin to see that your life is largely a reflection of how you manage this energy, how you allow it to flow, and how you direct it. You learn to transform frustration into motivation, anxiety into preparation, sadness into reflection and clarity, and even anger into assertive action. Every great achievement, every leap in personal or professional growth begins with emotional energy harnessed and directed. Without understanding that emotions are energy in motion, most people drift through life, reacting to circumstance, allowing fleeting feelings to dictate their choices, and surrendering their power to the very forces they could have mastered. But those who understand the power of emotion recognize that energy can be transformed, that it can be focused, and that it can be used to create, to expand, and to elevate. Energy in motion is a resource, a currency, a gift that, when consciously managed, becomes the driving force behind every success story, every breakthrough, and every transformation in human history. Your thoughts are not just fleeting mental chatter. They are the architects of your emotions, the invisible forces that shape how you feel, how you respond, and ultimately, the life you experience. Every emotion you feel begins as a thought, often so subtle that you barely notice it, yet it carries immense power. Anger, fear, anxiety, excitement, joy, they all emerge from the landscape of your mind. When you understand this principle, when you recognize that your feelings are not random or imposed by circumstance, but are the direct result of your thinking, you gain an extraordinary level of control over your life. Most people live their lives as if they are victims of circumstance, as if emotions happen to them randomly, without any connection to their own mental patterns. They say, I feel this way because of what happened to me, or I feel this way because of that person, without realizing that their emotions are a reflection of the thoughts they have allowed to dominate their minds. Thoughts, when left unchecked, can become tyrants, dictating your emotional state, influencing your decisions, and determining the quality of your relationships and achievements. The relationship between thoughts and feelings is powerful because thoughts act as triggers for emotional responses. A single thought of inadequacy can spiral into fear. A thought of betrayal can ignite anger. A thought of opportunity can spark excitement and hope. Emotions, therefore, are a mirror reflecting your inner dialogue. If your mind constantly feeds on doubts, worries, and negative predictions, your emotional world will naturally mirror that chaos, leaving you feeling powerless, overwhelmed, or defeated. On the other hand, when your mind is consciously directed toward empowering, constructive, and inspiring thoughts, your emotions follow suit, creating a state of confidence, resilience, and enthusiasm. The principle is simple yet profound. You cannot feel empowered if your thoughts are disempowering. You cannot experience joy if your mind is occupied by fear. You cannot master your emotions if you do not first master your thoughts. Developing this awareness begins with the recognition that thoughts are voluntary and manageable. You have the ability to notice a thought, to examine it, and to decide whether it serves you or hinders you. This is not a passive observation. It is active mental discipline. It requires pausing throughout the day and asking yourself, what am I thinking right now? Is this thought helping me? Or is it creating unnecessary emotional turbulence? By consciously choosing your thoughts, you begin to shape your emotional landscape. You replace fear with faith, doubt with certainty, frustration with patience, and resentment with understanding. It is not about ignoring reality or pretending that challenges do not exist. It is about taking control of the mental narrative that interprets reality, because your interpretation is what ultimately fuels your feelings. The way thoughts shape feelings also explains why some people can face identical circumstances yet experience them in completely different ways. Two individuals may receive the same criticism, encounter the same obstacle, or face the same loss, yet their emotional responses can be worlds apart. One may feel despair, anger, or helplessness, while the other may feel motivation, curiosity, and determination. The difference lies in their thought patterns. One mind has chosen to dwell on limitation, scarcity, and negativity, while the other has trained itself to focus on opportunity, growth, and possibility. Emotions are therefore not dictated by external events. They are dictated by your interpretation of those events, which is, in turn, dictated by your thinking. When you internalize this truth, you realize that you are not at the mercy of circumstance or other people. You are not powerless. Your mind is the soil, your thoughts are the seeds, and your emotions are the harvest that grows from what you choose to plant and nurture. Training your mind to create empowering thoughts requires vigilance and consistent practice. It involves catching yourself when negative thoughts arise and consciously redirecting your focus. It involves repeating affirmations, visualizing desired outcomes, and engaging in constructive mental exercises that align your thinking with your goals. Over time, your mind becomes a fertile ground for positive, empowering thoughts, and your emotional state naturally aligns with this inner environment. You begin to experience greater emotional stability, resilience, and clarity. Your feelings become your allies rather than your adversaries. You begin to understand that mastery over emotions starts with mastery over thoughts, because thoughts are the unseen puppeteers that pull the strings of how you feel. Every significant change in emotional experience begins with the discipline of thought The intentional choice to focus on ideas, beliefs, and perspectives that empower rather than diminish, that elevate rather than trap, and that align with the life you are determined to create. Mastery over your emotions does not come from suppressing them or pretending they do not exist. It comes from learning the profound power of the pause. The pause is the moment between stimulus and response, the space where true freedom and choice emerge. Most people react almost instantly to what happens around them, to words spoken, actions taken, or circumstances encountered. This automatic reaction is a result of habit, conditioning, and unconscious programming. It is immediate, impulsive, and often destructive. It leads to regret, conflict, and unnecessary stress. But the moment you learn to pause, the moment you insert that tiny space between what happens and how you respond, you create an opportunity to regain control, to act with intention rather than emotion, and to transform your entire experience of life. The pause is not hesitation born of fear. It is a conscious, deliberate act of self-mastery, a powerful tool that separates the successful, emotionally intelligent, and fulfill individuals from those who remain victims of circumstance. The pause allows you to observe the emotion rising within you without becoming it. It is in that space that you notice the surge of anger, the pull of frustration, the sting of hurt, or the rise of anxiety. Instead of reacting unconsciously, you can take a breath, acknowledge the feeling, and ask yourself, what is the highest way to respond in this moment? This simple act changes everything. It transforms reaction into action, chaos into clarity, impulsivity into choice. When you react immediately, your behavior is driven by habit, by past programming, and by the often misguided patterns of your subconscious mind. But when you pause, you access a deeper part of yourself, the conscious mind, where reason, insight, and vision reside. In this space, you can align your response with your values, your goals, and your long-term well-being, rather than being enslaved to temporary impulses. Learning to pause requires self-awareness and discipline. It begins with the recognition that emotional surges are natural and inevitable. You cannot prevent them from arising, but you can choose how to respond. You notice the physical signals that accompany emotional activation, the quickened heartbeat, the tension in your muscles, the racing thoughts, and use them as cues to step into the pause. Breathing deeply, counting to 10, or simply taking a moment to observe the emotion are techniques that create the space needed for conscious decision making. The pause is not weakness, it is strength, it is courage. It is the silent but powerful practice of saying, I am not controlled by this moment. I am greater than my impulses. Over time, this practice rewires your nervous system, creating a habit of emotional intelligence that becomes second nature, allowing you to navigate life's challenges with grace and mastery. The pause also provides perspective. When emotions rise, they often distort reality. Anger magnifies insult. Fear exaggerates danger. And frustration makes obstacles appear insurmountable. In the heat of a moment, decisions are rarely rational, rarely productive, and rarely aligned with long-term goals. The pause creates a vantage point, a step back from the immediate storm, where clarity and insight emerge. It allows you to examine the situation objectively, to separate facts from interpretation, to weigh the consequences of your actions, and to choose a response that is deliberate and effective. This practice builds not only emotional mastery, but also wisdom, because you learn that life does not require immediate reaction, that timing is critical, and that the most powerful actions often come from thoughtful restraint rather than impulsive engagement. Furthermore, pausing before you react strengthens relationships, communication, and influence. Most conflicts arise not from what happens, but from how people respond. A heated word, an impulsive gesture, or a moment of uncontrolled frustration can escalate a situation, damage trust, and create resentment. By pausing, you create space to respond in alignment with your values, to communicate with calmness, clarity, and compassion, and to turn potential conflict into an opportunity for understanding and connection. People notice the difference. They respond to the energy you bring into a moment. The pause allows you to radiate presence, intention, and emotional strength. And this, in turn, influences the environment and the people around you. The power of the pause is not theoretical. It is practical and life-changing. It is the mechanism by which ordinary people become extraordinary, by which reactive behavior is replaced with proactive mastery, by which emotional storms are navigated with skill rather than chaos. It is the quiet, unseen force that underlies every successful decision, every strong relationship, every moment of personal growth, and every instance of resilience. Those who master the pause find themselves free from the tyranny of their emotions, able to act from a place of strength, clarity, and purpose, shaping their life not according to impulses, but according to conscious choice, vision, and the highest expression of who they truly are. Every emotion you experience is deeply intertwined with the beliefs you hold. Beliefs are the lenses through which you interpret the world, the filters that give meaning to your experiences, and the invisible scripts that govern your emotional responses. When those beliefs are limiting, when they tell you that you are not enough, that you cannot succeed, or that life is something that happens to you rather than something you create, your emotions inevitably follow suit. Frustration, fear, self-doubt, and resentment rise naturally when your inner dialogue is rooted in limitation. But the incredible truth is that beliefs are not permanent. They are not fixed. They are not the immutable laws of life. They are constructs of the mind, patterns that can be changed, replaced, and upgraded. The moment you consciously identify a limiting belief and replace it with an empowering one, you instantly begin to shift your emotional state, your perception of reality, and the outcomes you are capable of achieving. Limiting beliefs often operate beneath conscious awareness. They are formed over years of conditioning, experiences, and repeated messages from others. You may have been told, consciously or unconsciously, that you are not capable, not deserving, or not equipped to handle certain situations. Over time, these messages solidify into beliefs, and beliefs shape the emotional responses you have to every situation that aligns or conflicts with them. When a belief tells you, I cannot succeed, the natural emotional consequence is fear or doubt. When a belief tells you, I am unworthy of love or respect, the emotional response is insecurity, sadness, or frustration. These beliefs act like emotional chains, silently controlling your reaction, limiting your choices, and dictating the quality of your life. Yet the beauty of this truth is that because beliefs are created, they can also be consciously replaced. Replacing limiting beliefs with empowering ones begins with awareness. You must first identify the beliefs that are holding you back. This requires deep introspection and honesty. Ask yourself, what thoughts do I repeatedly think about myself, my abilities, and my potential? What stories have I accepted as truth that create negative emotions? Once these beliefs are uncovered, you gain the power to challenge them. You begin to see that these thoughts are not facts, they are interpretations, and interpretations can be changed. The next step is to consciously choose new beliefs, beliefs that align with your goals, your potential, and your highest self. Instead of I cannot do this, you begin to tell yourself, I am capable of learning, growing, and achieving. Instead of I am not enough, you affirm, I am more than enough, and I'm constantly evolving into a greater version of myself. These empowering beliefs immediately begin to influence your emotions, replacing fear with confidence, doubt with certainty, and despair with hope. The process of belief transformation is not a one-time event, it is a continuous practice. It requires repetition, reinforcement, and conscious effort. Affirmations, visualization, and intentional self-talk are powerful tools in this process because they reprogram the mind at a deep level, rewiring emotional responses and creating new neural pathways. Every time you replace a limiting belief with an empowering one, you are literally reshaping brain, changing the way you respond to challenges, and altering the trajectory of your life. Emotions that once controlled you are now guided by conscious choice, by beliefs that support growth, resilience, and success. Empowering beliefs also expand your perception of possibilities. When you believe in your potential, your mind begins to see opportunities that were previously hidden. Obstacles no longer trigger panic or avoidance. They become challenges to overcome, lessons to learn, and steps toward mastery. Confidence rises, motivation increases, and fear loses its grip because your emotional state is aligned with beliefs that empower rather than restrict. The ripple effect of this transformation is profound. Your interactions improve, your decisions are clear, your energy shifts, and you attract experiences that reflect the new beliefs you are living by. The emotional freedom that comes from replacing limiting beliefs with empowering ones is transformative because it allows you to live from a place of possibility rather than limitation, from strength rather than fear, from confidence rather than self-doubt. Every extraordinary achievement, every breakthrough in personal growth, and every moment of emotional mastery begins with this principle. The moment you understand that your beliefs are the foundation of your emotions, that they dictate how you respond to life, and that they can be changed, you gain the power to take complete control over your emotional world. You are no longer a victim of circumstance, conditioned thoughts, or past programming. You are the architect of your own reality, capable of replacing fear with courage, limitation with abundance, and doubt with unwavering certainty. And this conscious shift in beliefs and emotions opens the door to a life of true mastery. Emotional mastery is not something that happens overnight. It is not the result of a single realization or moment of inspiration. True mastery of your emotions is built through consistency, through daily practice, through the deliberate and repeated choices you make to observe, understand, and direct your emotional energy. Just as an athlete trains their body, or a musician hones their craft, mastering your emotions requires discipline, dedication, and a persistent commitment to growth. Every small, intentional action taken to understand your feelings, to pause before reacting, to reframe thoughts, or to replace limiting beliefs, compounds over time. It builds a foundation of resilience, self-control, and clarity that becomes stronger with each deliberate practice session. Without consistency, knowledge alone is ineffective. Understanding the principles of emotional control is not enough. They must be applied, integrated, and practiced until they become second nature. The human mind and nervous system respond to repetition. Every time you consciously choose how to react to a situation, every time you pause instead of responding impulsively, every time you redirect negative thoughts into empowering ones, you are rewiring the pathways in your brain. You are creating new habits of response, new patterns that support calmness, clarity, and emotional intelligence. These patterns are not formed in a day. They are strengthened by daily practice, by repeated decisions to act with awareness rather than habit, by consistently choosing the higher path over the automatic one. Emotional mastery is a skill, and like any skill, it grows only with sustained effort. It is the accumulation of small wins, repeated over time, that creates profound transformation. Consistency also builds confidence in your emotional abilities. At first, learning to master your emotions can feel challenging. Old habits, conditioned reactions, and automatic thought patterns often resist change. You may find yourself slipping into frustration, anger, or fear despite your best intentions. But the key is persistence. Each time you practice, each time you apply the principles you have learned, you reinforce new neural pathways. You prove to yourself that you are capable of managing your inner state, that you are not a slave to circumstance, and that your emotions can serve you rather than control you. Confidence grows naturally as consistency reinforces your ability to navigate life with intentionality, clarity, and control. You begin to trust yourself, not in theory, but through repeated experience, and that trust is the foundation of lasting emotional mastery. Daily practice also allows you to refine your understanding of your emotions. Awareness, energy management, thought control, pausing, and belief transformation are all skills that deepen over time. The more consistently you apply them, the more subtle your recognition of emotional patterns becomes. You notice triggers before they escalate, understand the nuances of your internal reaction, and anticipate the impact of your emotional state on your decisions and interactions. Practice makes observation effortless. It turns conscious effort into an intuitive ability to respond with precision, balance, and insight. Emotional mastery is not merely about controlling extremes. It is about cultivating a consistent, centered state that allows you to respond to every situation with poise, clarity, and power. Consistency also compounds results in ways that are often invisible in the short term, but undeniable over the long term. Each deliberate act of emotional control strengthens your resilience, fortifies your self-discipline, and expands your capacity to handle life's challenges. Moments that would have previously triggered frustration, panic, or anger now become opportunities for learning, growth, and constructive action. Emotional mastery becomes a natural extension of who you are, embedded in your daily life, influencing your decisions, relationships, and overall quality of life. Small, persistent steps, repeated day after day, gradually accumulate into a profound transformation of character, perspective, and emotional intelligence. Furthermore, consistency in practicing emotional mastery cultivates an inner sense of peace and stability. When you consistently apply the principles of awareness, energy management, thought control, pausing, empowering beliefs, your mind and body begin to operate from a place of equilibrium rather than reaction. You develop the capacity to navigate stress, challenges, and uncertainty with composure and clarity. Emotions become allies, signaling insight, motivation, and direction, rather than enemies that destabilize and distract. Over time, the consistency of your practice turns mastery into a habit, and the habit turns into a way of life, where emotional intelligence is no longer a conscious effort, but an effortless, natural expression of who you are. Ultimately, consistency and practice are the bridges between knowledge and transformation. Knowing how to manage your emotions is only the beginning. Applying that knowledge daily, refining it, and making it a regular part of your life creates the tangible results that others admire and aspire to achieve. Mastery is earned, cultivated, and strengthened through repeated, intentional practice. It is the small choices made consistently over time that create the profound ability to respond to life with balance, power, clarity, and purpose.